I'm so pleased to extend a warm Authors and Innovators welcome to BK Fulton, author of The Blueprint, Lessons for Living Your Best Life. Mr. Fulton is an entrepreneur, investor, and filmmaker, and most importantly, from my experience, a storyteller. He was previously an executive at Verizon, where he oversaw the Mid-Atlantic operations in Virginia and West Virginia. I want to talk a little bit about that. He's held senior leadership positions with the U.S. Department of Commerce, AOL, Time Warner, and the National Urban League. He now runs an independent film company, Solidify Productions, in and around his hometown of Richmond, Virginia. He's been an investor, a guide, a trusted advisor to countless entrepreneurs, and he's sharing some of his observations and experiences in this terrific new book, The Blueprint, which is a collection of editor's notes that he published in Soul Vision magazine. This is a magazine that BK founded, and he grew to more than 150,000 subscribers prior to moving on to other entrepreneurial ventures, including an upcoming movie with Samuel L. Jackson and Uma Thurman. Welcome, BK Fulton. I'm so pleased to finally get to talk with you and to meet you. I'm really interested in sharing your story with our Author and Innovators audience. Tell us a bit more about how you got started in business. And as you state in the book, you are not always on a leadership track.
Right. Well, Larry, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And I look forward to our exchange for a little bit. But I got started in entrepreneurship actually really early, when I was like 10 years old, and used to cut grass as part of my dad's crew, and then decided when I was all of 10 that I wanted to have my own business. And because I couldn't drive, I needed him to drive me to the jobs. I needed his lawnmowers, his gas, and a few of his customers. And so my dad laughed about it. He said, yeah, okay. And so one guy, a guy named John Lawson, who runs the largest construction firm in Virginia, he became my first customer and is still a friend to this day. He's like my second dad. But, you know, so I've always had the entrepreneurial bug. But when I went to engineering school and then became a Sloan Fellow, went to graduate school and law school, I decided that maybe big business was the way I was going to go. And then after retiring from heading the Mid-Atlantic region for Verizon, which included Maryland, D.C., Delaware, and Washington, I then relocated back to Virginia and retired and started Solidify Productions because I wanted to be able to tell amazing stories, because it was stories about the success of my ancestors in particular that really put my life on rocket boosters. When I was at Virginia Tech studying engineering, I was flunking out fast. I mean, it was too many beautiful women, too much fun to have and playing ball and hanging out and dancing. It was cold in the winter, so I didn't like the cold, so I didn't want to go to class. And that is not a good formula for success. And so I went to the library to plan my escape. And I think it was divine. I ended up in the E185 section in any Dewey Decimal System. That's the section on black people. And I started reading about people like Lewis Latimer, whose family was from Virginia, and they ran away to Massachusetts, where he learned to draft and helped to create things like the filament for the light bulb, wrote the very first book on incandescence, drew the original patents for the telephone. And I'm like, wait a minute, a guy that looked like me, family from my home state, did that? I can do Virginia Tech. And so I went from the probations list to the dean's list to the board of directors. So lesson one, read the right stuff.
Right.
And
read.
Read, but not just any reading, because I was reading, but it wasn't the right stuff. And so once you start reading the right stuff, it pours into you. And for any human being, mirrors and windows are important. Early on, do you see yourself reflected in the stuff you're taking in? That helps you to figure out who you are in the world, where you fit in the world. And then once you're okay with you, you're able to look through windows, other people's lives, people that are in the human family, and say, if they did it, I can do it. And so you need both good role models, good windows, and good impressions, people that you relate to, showing you that you're okay, that you're enough. And when I wrote the book, I realized that not everybody gets that messaging. We get the standard, okay, read, you can be great, you can do whatever you want to do. And that all sounds good,
Right.
But if you don't see yourself winning, it's hard to believe that you're winning. In fact, the science on this is that if you're a minority, you're more likely to see a cat, a dog, or a humanoid on the cover of a book. What's the
Wow.
problem with that? Um, if you identify with the character on the cover of a book, then you're 3 to 10 times more likely to believe that you can achieve what they did. And so when you rob people of the mirrors, you also rob them of some of what they can give back to society. It's a net deficit. And so we can help ourselves by investing in everybody, telling more stories, helping people to believe that they're enough. Every boy, every girl. I mean, I joined this nonprofit board called the National Center of Women's Innovations recently because not enough stories about women in science are being told.
Right.
And so the first woman we're honoring is Dr. Gladys West. Have you ever heard of Dr. Gladys West?
Yes.
Okay, well then you're a rare bird, but it happens to be the little African American woman from Virginia that invented GPS. GPS.
Yes. Yes.
And so you'll hear people say things like girls aren't good at math. That's nonsense, of course. And so if you invented GPS, you got to be pretty good at math to do that. And so, but again, it's the stories we tell. And the problem, Larry, is people fill their heads with stereotypes and presuppositions. And so you've got to counter that with solid information. That's why even as a successful person, I still read 5 to 7 books a month as a standard. And I keep growing, and the mind, once stretched by a new idea, never returns to its original dimension. So I love it.
And that's got to be what inspired you to do the Mr. Business series, because this is not your first book. You've written a whole series of children's books. One of our co-sponsors for this entire event is a nonprofit called American Student Assistance, helping middle school kids see themselves, know themselves, and make thoughtful choices about what's next. And it strikes me that those books, what you're talking about, Gladys West, these are folks who are going to help them sort that out.
Right.
Earlier, the better.
The earlier, the better. The earlier, the better. As a matter of fact, if you can get them early, then you see more college participation, more AP class participation, interestingly, more entrepreneurial activity. So at the end of the day, readers become leaders, and plugging people in to these success formulas or the blueprint, like I wrote in the book, helps people to figure it out sooner. And when everybody brings the best version of themselves, it resolves in love. And that accelerates the cures for cancer, the cures for ALS, the cures for things that ails us. For us to go from whatever place to a better place, you got to put in the work. And part of that work is reading.
And BK, you've been a tech executive, so you, particularly based on your experience, you know the importance of tech to rural communities and to connecting people to those ideas. Yeah. Are you happy with the progress in Virginia, West Virginia, in the South generally, and then the U.S. overall in equipping rural communities and pulling those kids, that next generation, into these ideas? Can you comment on just the technology?
I think we can do better. I think that high-speed internet and mobile technology and the falling prices for the kind of equipment that allows you to connect and interact, all those things are good. I think we've got problems with what we're sending across the wires. So we've had TV for a long time, but garbage in, garbage out. And so if you're just watching horror shows or crazy stuff or Jerry Springer type of stuff, then that's not going to be the kind of stuff that helps your mind to evolve to the best version of itself. And you've got to read some of the better works about how societies were built, how you run a company, what's great about this process or that process, so that you get the tools of our time, the tools needed to then use the technology, use this stuff to solve a problem, to advance a great idea. And so I'm happy with the technology, and I think we've got to work on the content.
You say in the book, BK, you want people to do something with their gifts. How do they even know we all grow as people. We're all different people that when we're 50 versus when we're 20. How do people know their gifts? And I want you to speak directly to these entrepreneurs and figure out how to use them.
Yeah, sure. So your gifts are essentially the talents that you have or you hone. The fun thing is you can evolve the gifts. So if you want to be a writer, you have to sit down and write. If you want to make movies, at some point you got to work with people who made movies and work on something. Maybe you start with the short and you evolve to a feature. We're on our 20th film now, and 20 books and 3 Broadway shows, 2 of which have been #1, and we were nominated for 2 Tonys.
Yeah, amazing.
I didn't do that before I did it, and so having not done it is not a good excuse. And so one of the things is people have to set aside the excuses. What I did when I had this awakening and started performing better is I wrote a 60-year plan. And I basically looked at the lives of people that I respected. And then I said, okay, what are the common denominators for their life? And all of my people had college, so I knew I had to finish college. All of them were lawyers, so I went to law school. All of them worked in the Northeast at some point, so I ended up working in the Northeast for a while. And I retired on plan at 49 years, 348 days. I had a 50-year target, and I hit it.
Wow.
I actually was ahead of schedule.
And you did it.
And so anybody can do this. And what ends up happening is when you start to have a certain amount of success, people want to make you exceptional. It's easier to make one guy exceptional than to embrace that you didn't invest in all these other people who could have been successful too. And so part of the fallacy of the way we educate people is we kind of pick who's going to do the best or who's going to get the most resources, and you stack the deck effectively. Whereas what I tell people is your better solution is to invest in everybody. Double down on education. Double down on internships. Double down on mentoring. Double down on exposure. Make the resources available. Show them how to do it. If they don't learn, we didn't teach. And so stop blaming the kids for the stuff the grown-ups didn't do.
BK, what do you want to tell budding entrepreneurs or even business students who might be in college, who might be thinking about an MBA? The world is changing. Technology is changing. With the advent of globalization, AI, sustainability, the rise of B corporations. We're talking all about this for authors and innovators. What advice do you give to a young BK Fulton who would be thinking about, where do I spend my time? Where do I invest my energy right now?
So a couple of things. That plan was helpful for me, writing the plan, because life is dynamic. Stuff comes up. People before us faced obstacles. I faced obstacles. You faced obstacles. People that are following will face obstacles. And so when stuff comes up, if you've got a plan, does this thing help my plan? If the answer is no, don't do it. If the answer is yes, you can consider it. You don't have to do it, but you can at least consider it. So you stay on path. You stay on trajectory. The other thing I would suggest is don't create the Taj Mahal of this business plan, all this scaffolding that gets so big that you can't act on it. I was talking to the founder of Netflix a little while ago, and Mark was sharing how, when he and Reed Hastings were driving in a car and they made a bet. And he said, okay, I got this DVD, and I'm going to mail it to your house. And if it arrives intact, I'll invest a couple $1 million in you. We'll start this crazy company. Fortunately, it arrived intact. But to think that the thing that we now know as Netflix could have totally not been done because of the mail system is crazy. But I think the critical thing that he shared was, don't build the Taj Mahal of a plan in your head. He said so many entrepreneurs psych themselves out because somebody told them to go make a business plan, so they get this tome that is inactionable or that they don't have the resources for. They talk themselves out of it. Last thing is solve a problem. We all have delusions of grandeur, and we want to be the CEO of this company or that company. Most people don't become CEOs of major, Fortune 50 companies, Fortune 500 companies. I was fortunate. I worked hard, got some doors open. It worked out for me. but I haven't had as much fun as when I've been running my own thing. 'Cause now I'm calling the shots. The team's dependent on me as the leader, and I love it. I absolutely love it, and I had enough sense to get out of the way. And the problem I was solving was I wanted to tell these stories that help people to become the best version of themselves. And so I surrounded myself with people in the business. So I got Spike Lee's #2. I got a guy that worked with Martin Scorsese. I got a kid who was hungry, who was a great writer, an honor student out of one of the local universities. And so we started the magazine. We started doing films. We were the first independent film company to do 4 feature films in our first year. We did, I think, 4 the second year. And so, and then during the pandemic, we still had content. And fortunately, we had started enough before the pandemic so that we were in post-production or about to release when it hit. And then most recently, I filmed with Uma Thurman and Samuel Jackson. We had finished filming it before the writer's strike and the actor's strike. So there was a bidding war for our film because it was complete. And other people were still getting their stuff together. So timing is fun, but I don't control the time. That's God's, department. I just try to make sure that I take advantage of every minute that I have. And I try to make sure that I have fun. That's the last thing. Enjoy it. It's a great journey, especially when you love it. And if you love it, you're not really working. You're having fun.
Oh, great advice. And I want to make sure everyone listening goes out to see The Kill Room, BK's upcoming film, Uma Thurman and Samuel L. Jackson. BK, now that you're doing these films and you continue your life as a storyteller, what other stories are you anxious to tell next?
Oh, my goodness. There's a guy named Charlie Wiggins who was an early pioneer in Indy car racing, so I'm working with a group to tell that story. I think my magnum opus will be a film called Final Four, The Miracle Season. It's about the 1983 NC State Wolfpack team and that championship season.
Wow.
A true Cinderella, winning the big dance, Coach Valvano, and him creating the V Foundation. As a matter of fact, we're going to give some of the proceeds to the V Foundation, about 10% actually, because we believe in that much. That part of the reason to do this work is not just to get on the big screen and have your name in lights, but to be more for your community, to be more for the people that you love. And as you start to get our age and get a few gray hairs, you realize it's not about the vanity of self, but about the love of community and the love of something bigger. I want to leave behind pools that I never swim in. So for me, what are the great stories that will inspire people long after I'm gone to keep going? So that's what I want to do.
I love it. And last question, BK, what are you reading these days?
Oh my goodness. I knew you were going to ask me that, so I prepared a short list. So I'm almost finished with The Great Dissenter about Justice John Marshall Harlan, and Walk Through Fire by Sheila Johnson. She was the first African-American female billionaire. Power Broker, Lyndon Johnson's Path to Power. It's a 4-volume set.
Yeah, Caro set. Yeah, wow.
Read about the Warner Brothers. And then I'm going to throw in the new Elon Musk book. So I should have all that stuff read in the next couple of months.
The busiest retired man on the planet, BK Fulton. The book is The Blueprint, Lessons for Living Your Best Life. BK, thank you so much for joining us, and I can't wait to see the film, and just can't wait to see what you're going to do next. Thank you again.
Larry, I appreciate it. And look, we have The Wiz, a revival coming out on the 23rd of this month also, and then we'll be in Broadway for 20 weeks. We'll do a national tour for 20 weeks, so check that out as well.
Wow, and the website where people can learn more?
www.solidify, SOULIDIFLY.com.
I hope everyone will check it out. BK Fulton, thank you again.
Thank you, Larry.